I'm losing my patience with this sort of thing because it's not clever at all, right? It's very obvious what they're doing, it's very clear. They are deliberately obfuscating and just trying to create enough confusion to disguise the fact that we urgently need to reduce our meat consumption. So the AHDB has responded to my criticism of their paper, kind of. Here's their non-response from yesterday from their marketing director Liam Byrne, who said, I agree with the earlier comment that the science is more nuanced. The conversation is moving on, and for the most part it's good and getting better. Notice how much nothing is said here, by the way. The science is more nuanced. Okay, nothing said there. The conversation is moving on. For the most part, it's good and getting better. I mean, again, nothing statement. It's important to recognise that not all meat is the same, not all meat alternatives are the same, and neither are all diets or lifestyles. Again, completely devoid of content. Right, not addressing anything I've said. A more refined context. This is the best sentence of all. Look how much of a nothing long sentence this is. A more refined context-specific approach can help move us beyond blanket blame and toward better policy, environment, and system design, ultimately leading to outcomes we can all support and feel better about. I mean, does this work on anyone? Does anyone feel anything after reading that? This is edited as well. What did it look like before? The job here is basically to issue a response which is so boring that most people who are reading along with this just get bored and think, oh, I can't really be bothered to work out who's right here, right? There's kind of given this long response, it's going to get into the weeds on all of these different points, right? It's a complete non-response. And I've replied saying as much. I said, I don't mean to be rude here, but you've not given even a hint of an answer to my question. It's nothing personal, it is literally your job to spin the science in favour of people eating more meat. I get it. I have a feeling I'll be repeating myself a lot here, so I'm just going to call this question Q1. Given that 64% are overweight or obese, while only 4% are anemic, and given that only 26% of UK meat comes from ruminants, do you agree that overall UK meat consumption going down would benefit health and environmental outcomes? I'll note for those reading along, I say, this is the second time I'm asking Q1 to Liam Byrne. Let's see if we can get an answer before I ask a third or a fourth or a fifth time. Well, that's still the last we've heard from AHDB Marketing Director Liam Byrne, but we do now have a response from the report's author, Emma Williams. She untagged herself in my post yesterday, but today she decided to reply instead. She says, you forgot to mention that you got a polite response to your message, which you sent on a Sunday, stating that you would get a reply. Given offices are closed today, brackets Bank Holiday Monday, you will receive a response in due course. Yeah, the meat industry lobbyists are a little too tired to work on the Bank Holiday weekend. You might want to get those iron levels checked out. I really hate that they're doing the polite thing as well. They are deliberately publishing misinformation to try and obfuscate the need to reduce our overall meat consumption. They're not going to give any straight answers to my very simple questions about the need to reduce our overall meat consumption, but their marketing director is very polite on LinkedIn. So kind of a response, kind of not really. I said, fair enough. It has been Sunday and Bank Holiday Monday. I look forward to seeing your response, but ideally I would love to have a short recorded call where we can get some clear answers to my specific questions, rather than a meandering corporate non-response like the one I had so far. My questions are: number one, would higher or lower overall consumption of red meat be conducive to better health outcomes in the UK, given that only 4% are anemic but 64% are overweight or obese? And number two, would higher or lower overall consumption of red meat be conducive to better environmental outcomes in the UK, given that only 26% of UK meat is from ruminants, whereas 73% is from animals which are overwhelmingly factory farmed? Notice that my questions are not about specific subpopulations or niche types of production systems or whether the UK has better metrics than other countries, but somehow I expect the AHDB response is going to talk a lot about these issues and very little about my two questions. That's why I'd be happy to pay for your time if you're up for having a recorded conversation about these questions. And no response to that so far. And now you're going to have the AHDB give some canned corporate non-response about how it's important to be nuanced and there are different lifestyles that we have to respect. and you're not going to say anything about my questions about overall UK meat consumption and their relationship to environmental and health outcomes. The reality is we need to reduce our meat consumption substantially in the UK. I challenge anybody from the AHDB to disagree with that. They haven't disagreed with that, by the way. They're acting as if they had by gesturing towards this report. They have not said, and they won't say anything about the overall level of UK meat consumption. I do have one person who's willing to talk to me. He's not from the AHDB. I suspect they've been told not to talk to me if they're being sensible. But he is some sort of person connected to the meat industry, founder of something called the Ethical Butcher, and head of knowledge exchange at something called New Foundation Farms. He was arguing a little bit in one of the posts about this. Based on my exchange so far, I feel quite confident about the debate that I've agreed to have with this guy. He has agreed to debate me on the condition that I publish the conversation, whatever the outcome. So that's one thing for sure then. This channel will be getting its first debate very soon. So if you haven't already, that's something to subscribe for, and you're going to want to see how the rest of me grilling these guys turns out. I'm also really pleased that somebody sent this to me. Somebody sent this report to me just a few days ago on LinkedIn, and I'm pleased that now people are coming to me with misleading reports from the meat industry as somebody who can debunk it. So if you come across misleading reports, misleading scientific papers, items in the mainstream press, news websites, news broadcasts, whatever it may be, please send them to me. Please send them to me, because the tricks are always the same. And that's what I'm learning from this one. The tricks are exactly the same as in the Dublin Declaration. And it's really now easy to debunk and show very concisely where they're wrong, and to frankly embarrass the people who are putting their names to these things. I think we can look forward to another corporate non-response from AHDB this week if they bother responding at all. I think we probably can't look forward to speaking to anybody from the AHDB. Nobody from the AHDB is going to want to actually defend that report in a conversation. But we can look forward to speaking to this lad, Glenn Burrows, who's agreed to speak to me, and on the condition that I upload the conversation. So make sure you subscribe if you want to catch that. I'm losing my patience with this sort of thing because it's not clever at all, right? It's very obvious what they're doing. It's very clear. They are deliberately obfuscating and just trying to create enough confusion to disguise the fact that we urgently need to reduce our meat consumption. They are trying to make it as if it's a nuanced issue and there are some arguments on this side and some arguments on that side. But notice, nobody from the AHDB will give a straight answer to the question of whether overall meat consumption needs to decrease to be conducive with better health and environmental outcomes. They're talking about anemic, which is 4% of the UK population. They're not talking at all about overweight and obesity, which is 64% of the UK population. They're talking about agroecological systems, which can create environmental benefits, which account for at the very most 26% of UK meat, and they are completely ignoring factory farmed meat, which accounts for up to 73% of UK meat. I hope it's really clear what they're doing and what they're going to keep doing. They're going to keep obfuscating. They're going to release press releases if they respond to this at all that says, well, it's nuanced, it's complicated, here's a 175-page report. The point of the needlessly long report, by the way, is so that they can hide behind it and say, you need to read the whole 175-page report before you can critique this. Right? It's a very, very simple argument. You do not need to read their report to be able to critique it. They're talking about something which affects 4% of the UK population. They've not contested that. And they're talking about production systems which account for a tiny minority of UK meat production, and they have not contested that either.